Hello, today we're going to talk about some more specific ways to describe and identify things. So this is what we call descriptive classifiers. When I first taught you classifiers, I just kind of looped them, kind of hooked them all together in one group, but actually they can divide into 8, 9, a bunch of different categories. And so today we're going to focus on descriptive classifiers. These show what things look like. All right, think about a shape like this. How would you sign that? Right? Seems straightforward enough. How about this one? What about that? However, how do you know how big that sphere actually is? What if it's a ping pong ball? Then I might sign it like this. What if it's a softball? Now I'm going to sign it like this, which is kind of more how we signed it in that first part. What if it's a big rubber bouncy ball? Now it's like this. All three of these things are balls that you play with in sports, right? But their size is going to be different. So the shape is the same, the function is the same, but I'm going to change my hand shape depending on how big it is. A ping pong ball, a softball, a red bouncy ball. What about a cube, right? So cube, but if it's a dice, I might only use my fingers to talk about. So it's a dice and it's little tiny. If I'm talking about Chinese takeout, oh, that sounds good. So it's a food container, right? What if I'm talking about a file box? Right? I'm going to use a different to show how big, to show the size of the box. All right, what if it's a disc? An Oreo, about that big. A moon pie, about this big, so now I might use both hands to show how big it is. One of those monster cookies from that store at the mall that you bring instead of a birthday cake is, right? All three of these are cookies, okay? But now this one's great big. What about a cylinder, right? This little sparrow's on a little tree branch. This squirrel's on a bigger tree branch. And these cats are on a tree branch. All right. Again, hand shape's going to change. Little F's to a C to a. It's still a C, but now how I'm doing it is changed. What about talking about a cone? So you have ice cream cone. What if you had a traffic cone? What if you had a megaphone? Right? So they're going to change a little bit depending on the direction that they're going. We don't want the ice cream cone upside down, but the traffic cone won't stand up unless it's that way. So how you sign it, whether you start at the bottom and go up, or start at the narrow part and go down, or start at the wide part and go to the point, it doesn't matter. Kind of depends on the context, actually. But cones are going to have different signs. All right. Now we're going to take a minute to talk about morphemes. I've shown you morphemes in ASL since the very beginning. Now I just want to go a little more depth into that and show you exactly what that means. A morpheme is the smallest semantically meaningful unit of a language. All right, semantic meaning it has meaning. So this is the smallest part of the word that means something all by itself. Okay, so morphemes are to words what cells are to your body, or actually what cells are to any living organism, or what bricks are to a house. So to use the cell thing, there are one-celled organisms in the world, and there are other organisms like you and I that have lots of cells that all do different things and have different functions, okay? Both of those are morphemes. So there are basically two types of morphemes, at least that's what we're going to focus on now. Those free morphemes are ones that can stand alone as words. So like the word kind, to be, like, oh, she was very kind to me after the death of my father. Or berry, like a kind of fruit. Okay. There are also bound morphemes, and these appear as parts of other words. Okay. So an example would be like prefixes and suffixes, like unkind, right? So that was a very unkind thing for you to say. Unkind, so un makes it the opposite, right? Or berries, we add an S to the end, and that makes it plural. Now, in this case, we actually had to change the spelling of berries because we added the S to it, but that IE doesn't really have meaning, so that doesn't count as a morpheme, all right? But, so that's the difference between just random letters and something that means something else. There's also what we call non-affix or cranberry morphemes, and this is kind of a very specific example. The word cran naturally does not stand alone, okay? It only means something when it's attached to the word berries. Now, I know you've gone to the store, and the folks at Ocean Spray have gone crazy with the cran apple and the cran grape and stuff like that, but traditionally, the word cran does not stand alone. It has to go with the word berry. All right, so those are morphemes, just basic. I give you some English examples, but here's morphemes in ASL. Non-manual signals are often a form of bound morpheme because they add meaning to the sign. So like that S at the end of berries that made it plural, a non-manual signal does the same thing, or it can. Some classifiers are called polymorphemic. So morpheme, poly meaning many, because they can show shape, size, location, movement, description, and or handling information, and all at the same time. That's something English can't do. All English can do is come up with a word that kind of describes a thing or whatever, but to do all of that at the same time isn't something English can handle. ASL, however, can. And you've heard me say this before, and I will continue to say it because it proves itself over and over and over again. English is big and complicated. ASL is small and deep, okay? Because we can do several things at the same time, and this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. All right, so specifically a mouth morpheme is the shape or movement of the lips that becomes a non-manual signal that adds to the meaning of a sign. So this isn't when a deaf person just sort of talks along with their signing or anything like that. This has specific meaning to it. It's not just, oh, they're mouthing along with their signs. This gives us more information. So if I'm talking about something small, I'm going to use it mouth morpheme, right? It kind of says ooh. Now it doesn't actually have to say ooh. You don't have to make that sound because deaf people can't hear you. But you need to make that shape in your mouth. For a medium-sized object, you kind of go, you purse your lips. That's what that's called. Purse your lips. So put your lips together and have kind of a flat mouth line. And then if something's big, and we've talked about this before, it's cha. Again, you don't have to say cha, right? But it's that movement of your lips. And then hand shapes can change depending on the size of the classifier you're talking about. And this were kind of some of the examples we just went through. So here's, again, the cylinders. All right, if you have a rectangular prism, I didn't give you an example of this, but a rectangular prism is like a cylinder, except that it's square instead. So a small one might look like this. If it's bigger, it might look, and if it's huge, it might look like if you're talking about an air conditioning conduit or something. A cube, again, if it's really small, you might use a 1, and you kind of exhale while you do that. A medium-sized one might use a G hand or a bent hand. And a big one might use just a flat hand. And last we have discs, again like the cookies. So a small one might just be an F hand shape. So a disc meaning it's flat, it's not a sphere. Or I hope that was a good little introduction to what things look like and describing objects in more detail. And as we continue, happy signing.